We all know the one townhouse, or rather the one that no one talks about, one you're really not supposed to go into. It became home for one family. They soon learned some houses have dark secrets, and secrets that don't hide well. In the late 1980s, the Thompsons moved into a run-down, old, rambling farmhouse in the middle of those Oregon country lines. It was huge, quiet, and away from the city's busy life. They knew not that the house had a history that wouldn't be that easily forgotten. It started small. The first Susan noticed was that the lights were flickering. After all, the house was old. They thought it was just faulty wiring. However, that didn't mark the end of the strange occurrences. One night, Susan heard what she thought was soft crying coming from the upstairs bedroom. She went in and found her daughter, Emma, fast asleep. The crying had ceased, but a bad feeling persisted. Something wasn't right. She continued to brush it off until the next night. John tried to stay rational. He couldn't even explain what happened next, though. Midnight, and the TV turned itself on, and loud hiss of static filling the room. There would be cold drafts through the house, and the air would be chilled. They began to believe they weren't alone. Then there was the basement. They avoided it as much as they could. The air down there was thick, suffocating. One night they heard a kind of banging pounding down onto the floor, loud, violent banging that shook the floor. John took a flashlight and cautiously opened the basement door. And nothing. Silence. Thicker smell of damp earth. Darker Emma's drawings got. Drawing figures, tall and featureless, stood in corners of rooms. Her mother asked her about it, and she just said, "They live here with us." Deep down, the parents knew something was terribly wrong, but they tried to hide their fear. A night at dinner. A crash goes as loud as upstairs follows. When the family rushed to the bedroom, all it found was the bed overturned, Emma's toys scattered across the floor. But what terrified them the most was the message scratched into the wall. A single word, written in jagged letters, "Leave." As the disturbances kept growing worse, whispers, footsteps, shadows moving when one was not looking. There was always watching, always waiting. She saw figures out of the corner of her eyes. They were living in a nightmare. The family could no longer ignore it. The house was the worst for the final night. It seemed like the whole house came alive. The walls shuddered, the lights flickered loudly, and that same low whisper rang in every room. The footsteps drew nearer and nearer, until the family was paralyzed with fear, huddling together. By morning, they were gone. The townspeople knew that they never spoke of what happened in that house. The Thompsons weren't the first family to pack it up and run. They weren't the last. The house remains empty to this day, and you can still hear the whispers of those inside. The townsfolk say, if you stand outside on a quiet night, and if you're brave enough, or foolish enough to listen,